hydroponics company, and I basically uh, want to have this idea, this niche idea, the same as the Brooklyn Grange, of putting rooftops or gardens on top of rooftops.
Well,
And
did
they're
you
like,
have
okay,
sorry, did you have any agricultural
none whatsoever. This is someone
Oh,
with
well.
a construction engineering background, and I just decided. And so how that came about, sidetrack a little bit. Um, it was 2011, I think. I was still a student in Cape Town, and I was sitting in a lecture, bored out of my skull. I'm like, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? Gassed of Jay-Z lyrics. I left at lunchtime. I went downtown in Cape Town to go register a company. And I came about with the idea of a company that's like an innovative company, a company that's always thinking whatever's next, whatever people are doing, what's next, what's behind that, what's the next evolution of that. And I called it Envisioned Digital Agency. I spelled it wrong. I spelled the name of the company wrong, but that's
Is
what
it?
went through. And so I started coming up and joining these incubators, these tech incubators, thinking of different ideas. And that's how I've always tried to position the company, being the forefront leader in everything I do. If I'm going to be in construction, I try my hand at 3D printing of houses and light steel frame construction. Try
Wow.
myself in media. So I've always just looked at what's next, what's behind everything.
So you wanted to be
So when this
entrepreneur, you
idea,
wanted to use technology, and then
exactly. So
why
there was
hops?
so,
Notoriously difficult to grow.
so that's where I'm getting to. When the idea of agriculture came, I'm like, okay, this is the next step in agriculture, rooftop farming in the inner city, and I experimented. So, like I said, I played the devil's advocate. I went to the mineral councils and told them I'm from this hydroponics company with no experience. Nobody in my family even had a farm or anything like that. I didn't know what I was gonna grow. I just came up with the idea. So I approached them, and they're like, "Okay, get us a code." I was like, "Wow, now I need a code." So I Googled, and I found a hydroponics company in Pretoria. I'm from the Mineral Council, and we're looking for codes for something like that. So they told me, "Okay, we can get you a code." I got a code from them. I was like, "Okay, you guys will join me," and I submitted to the Mineral Council. Like, it's too expensive, but you can join this incubator. So now in this incubator, it was a bunch of young people that all qualified to be a part of the program, and they were all from different backgrounds. Some in chemical engineering, some were doctors in philosophy and different things. So there's a bunch of educated, young, aspirational, or young students, and we all went through this course. So this course is WIBC. Wouldn't it be cool? WBIC. WIBC, sorry. And what happened there is they teach you basically the business model. Because one thing you don't know about farming is it has a lot to do with the numbers. It's a numbers game more than it is anything. So they taught us about business canvas models and everything like that. We had to learn in different spheres of farming. And then the last 2 weeks, they teach you about hydroponic farming. And I was like, okay, this still fits within my idea of having an agri-tech business. So from there, everybody were really presenting. They came with an idea in mind. I'm gonna grow lettuce. I'm gonna grow parsley. I'm gonna grow like different all sorts of herbs and leafy greens. I was the last one to choose because I came in this thing with a business concept. I came in thinking I could grow cannabis because that was the next thing in my mind. But it didn't work out that way. It didn't work out that way. They didn't want to support cannabis at the time because of just
Legislation.
legislation, regulations, everything, red tape around it, as well as the social ills in the country to add on top of cannabis growing. So I was a loss, absolute loss to grow anything. So one time in one of the lectures, this is me traveling from Klerksdorp all the way to Joburg for classes every week or second week. So one of the classes I attended, they mentioned SAB and how they grow there, how they make their beer, and all the things that go into it, barley, malt, hop. And I learned that they own about 100% of the hop yards in South Africa, or
Yep.
402. or 402 hectares. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So what do the craft brewers get? And they're like, okay, they buy from SAB. I was like, that's not really a good idea. So I came up with this idea of a four season greenhouse that grows hops to supply to the craft brewers in South Africa. I was like, okay, that's my crop. When everybody's choosing everything else, hops and leafy greens and all these things, I mean, I chose hops. I chose hop when everybody went for leafy greens and herbs and all these things.
So,
So
can I just come sort of just
yeah,
explain to us? It's a hydroponic farm, so you don't do everything. You pump water into it, and
so that's the great thing about the hydroponic hop house. What it would look like be this controlled environment agriculture. That's basically what greenhouses are. The controlled environment agriculture. You basically manipulate the plant into thinking the conditions are the same to where it grows natively. So hops are very specific crops, and they love specific conditions. They only grow in the southern Cape of South Africa
it's in
because of the
around.
long.
You can only grow
Yes,
it around George. Yeah.
you can only grow it around George because they have about 16 hours of sunlight over there, whereas we have around 12 to 14 hours here in Johannesburg. So I had to get lights and grow lights added to my structure. Um, the magnificent thing about greenhouse agriculture is there's no need for soil. So it has this reservoir tank that it uses, that's about 5,000 liters, 500 to 5,000 liters, depending on the size you require, to run consistent water with a pump inside of it that generates water into a pipe that goes right through the system, depending on what system you're using. I use a Dutch bucket system, so it's these little plant sites within the Dutch bucket, and the water runs through there through a grow media, which is very porous. Is made of coconut husks, and water just flows through. So it's a medium in which you plant your thing, and then they grow, and it's nutrient rich cocoa peat that I use, and the water runs through the pipe from the reservoir right back out. It fertilizes, the roots of the plant, and it directly dials the nutrients into the
So,
rhizome or the plant roots,
okay,
and flush.
but
Yeah.
seeing that everything in South Africa around SA breweries, where did you find plants? You know, where did you
That's
know where to go?
that's an interesting part as well. So through my journey of looking for these seedlings or roots or anything I could use to grow hops, I didn't know. Bear in mind, I had no experience in agriculture, so I'm learning everything firsthand as I'm going through my journey. So what happened was I learned about plant breeders' rights. I was like, there's this thing called plant breeders' rights. That means the owners of the hops or have the pure carte blanche to tell you what to do, where to grow it, and you have to pay them a license fee to grow these things. And I found out SAB. So the lucky thing, as I was experimenting, while I was in my experimental phase before I built my original one, that's in Constitutional Hill right now, I had to do hops. So I was given an experimental demo site with 10 rows. At the time, the program was sponsored by SAB, so they did
Okay.
provide me with cuttings. Uh, but once I developed and they moved away from sponsoring the state program, I had to find my own. So I went through forums, I went through Reddit, I went through Yelp, I went through anything, any Facebook group, anyone that would listen, I'd call and find out, do you know anything about hops, where I can get rhizomes, only to find out that there's a gentleman out in the north of Pretoria. He has this little farm and he grows hops. And the variety he grows is an Australian hybrid of Chinook and Krakenup varieties. They call it Krakenup, and then there's also another variety that he has. It's called Nogeklip,
Nog een klip.
Knock. And
Yeah.
AK, it's on a. He says they named it after that place because they grow it in such a or rocky terrain. So every time they would dig, they find another rock,
Nog
nog
een
een
klap.
klip.
And his name is?
Gert van der Waal. So he's become a mentor. He's helping me. He's the management, an environmental management consultant, but has a great passion and knowledge of hop growing in South Africa. So
Yeah, how's it been
yeah,
going? Have you harvested yet? What have you done so far?
so after had happening with those rhizomes and I planted I erected a 300 square meter greenhouse with with all the gadgets, with everything, all the environmental control features that come with it. It had 550 plant sites or buckets because I was growing in a Dutch bucket system, and Khayat provided me with all 500 rhizomes. So I grew and I managed to grow, harvested twice already, and this was my first winter harvest. So the concept of a four-season hydroponic greenhouse is something that's never been done before in South Africa. So I tested it using my data, reverse engineering, growing, failing, and successfully I had harvest, and I transported them and sold them to a brewery down in Paarl in Cape Town, a Soul Barrel Brewery, and they actually framed it like such a unique, innovative beer, and that was such a reassuring thing after years and years. 2016 is a long time ago, so to finally have something, your brainchild, actually become something out of the idea and conceptualization of a four-season hydroponic greenhouse in agri-tech.
So 4 seasons,
Yeah.
you can plant 4 seasons of the year.
So basically, so traditionally, where hops are grown and how they're grown traditionally down in
Yeah.
George, they only harvest once a year. Um, they plant it in March and harvest the next year, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, so it's only the 12-month growth cycle when you grow them traditionally. But in hydroponics, with precision farming, where you dial the nutrients that they need to grow and manipulate them with the grow lights and everything, you can actually grow every 3 months, and that's like
Okay.
an incredible feat that I've been successfully. And the yields, you can even control the yields, and you save less. You use less water because I save about 90% of the water I use,
Okay.
because it is a hydroponic system. It regenerates the same water. I just have to measure the pH and the EC and make sure the nutrients are sufficient for the plant to grow. Make sure that it has enough hydrogen, nitrogen, potassium, and the right fertilizers to help it
You
grow.
sound as though you're doing a real scientific approach to a typical engineer, which is good. Well, tell us, you've been busy with this since 2016, and you've harvested and you've tasted your first beer?
So I will say the idea came around
Okay.
2016. The developments. So I've been entering ever since I found out about this crop. I found out like the incredible use for hops. It's actually a miracle crop, Linda. Something that I've done research on, the healing properties, the cuisines, hops in tea, hops. Traditionally, it's always just grown, harvested, and then they pelletize it into and then store it. After they've burnt it, they pelletize it and store it for the next beer cycle. But I realize that's going to cost a lot of money, and that's something as an agriculture entrepreneur that you don't have a lot of. So I learned about the other uses of hops that I could use commercially to
Oh, wow.
sustain my business. So
Okay, so
okay.
was this enough to sustain a side job, or is this, is this what you do?
Luckily, in my curiosity of looking for everything technologically based and innovative, I was one of the few people that learned about the early days of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and I found work in that space, remotely working for international companies in space, and
Wow.
I've grown and had a great reputation there. And there's also no background of finances or technology or computer science. It's just I was able to learn about that space, and luckily I worked for companies that were able to where I was able to work remotely and still sustain my business and pay salaries using a salary that I get, just driven by this passion to see the completion of this four-season hop house.
Sounds good.
So
And we the best of luck, but just tell me, I hope
thank
you bought cryptocurrency in the beginning before
I
the
did.
prices. Oh, wow.
I did, but like everyone, we sold. Like if anybody tells me that they didn't sell prematurely, they're lying, unless they lost.
I think that you're at the right place at business to tell you about, investments and not. Okay, we need to wrap up. Just as a finish, apart from that, you interesting, you do a cryptocurrency. Tell us one little interesting thing about hops, because apparently there's a lot of quirkiness about growing hops.
So as I've mentioned, they are very finicky plants. They're very, they're smiling one day, next day they're dying. So you have to have a very thick skin growing them. They're like babies. You have to talk to them, have to nurture them, and all these things. But one thing I found about hops, as I said, the pharmaceutical side of hops has become so amazing. It's become like a revolution. It could revolutionize the pharmaceutical sector, and I've entered competition using hops, global competitions, and I've been lucky enough and fortunate enough to win some of them,
Wow.
and that's informed my structure in my hop growing and everything. So what I found is the cuisine side of hops. Chefs love to sear some of the lupin in hops over steaks, and it gives it such a nice flavor. Hops are used for a multitude of sicknesses like inflammation, menopause. They even have like made cases for tuberculosis, eradicating tuberculosis. And as you know, tuberculosis is the
Okay.
number one killer in South Africa. So it's a miracle crop, and I highly enjoy working and researching and learning about it every day. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
So if we're looking for your brand, what is it called?
so my company is called AfriLeap.
AfriLeap.
AfriLeap, all one word. Yeah, I'm on social media with the
Okay.
same name, Instagram and Twitter. My social handle is Khaya Maloney, and I just trying this life thing out. What can
Okay.
I say? Yeah.
Kaya, much for speaking to us, and we'll
Thank
keep an eye on you for those products and that we
you.
hopefully will see on shelves and everywhere. Thanks so
Will
much,
do.
and thanks for speaking to us.